It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, July 23rd, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high-quality content that's getting into the weeds on where this rebuild is going.
Looking into the crystal ball.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 20 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And to keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dig into the rebuild, where we are, where we think we're going, as well as your mailbag questions toward the end of the show today, a couple bits of Flyers news. We finally got word that Porter Martone is definitely going to college. We knew he was going to college, but now we know where, and that is Michigan State. So what do you think about that choice, and especially the choice potentially over Penn State?
We talked about that choice being there. Those were the two. There was no doubt about it. That was expected. And when McKenna went to Penn State, so did all the money. Like, that was it. You know, they already had Jackson Smith and that. So, you know, Michigan State had that money to still offer. They probably didn't give Martone what they offered McKenna, but they probably gave him a nice, tidy sum. And it's nice that, and we talked about Shane Van Sage being there. That's secondary, though. The money's first. And
correct.
And that's always the case with athletes. You could say, you could have the grandiose dreams of guys wanting to do this because it's better to develop, and guys want to win because of this. Follow the money first. And it's fair. Like, I would do the same thing if I was him.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on. Now, I think secondarily, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, would you rather go for a title with Gavin McKenna or potentially defeat Gavin McKenna? And I think there's some competitiveness there as well to know that for Martone, he's going to have a higher percentage of the spotlight and the attention at Michigan State and have a chance to go up against the presumptive first overall pick from next year. I think there's a challenge to that.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. On the surface, though, Penn State's better because they were already in the Frozen Four last year. They have a fair amount of returning guys, and they got the best guy, the best prospect in the last 5 years. So it's a big challenge for him. But I think, yeah, he's that kind of guy that likes challenges. I agree with that part.
I think so, too. Speaking of challenges, Team Canada is looking to win Olympic gold next year, and Flyers head coach Rick Tocchet is going to be part of that effort. Officially, he was named as one of the 4 assistant coaches to Team Canada. Now, he was there this past year in the Four Nations tournament as an assistant coach as well. So familiar territory, but really interesting mix of assistant coaches for Team Canada, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think what they look for is guys who not all think alike, but also are just have been in the league a long time as coaches. And so that's what they got, mostly.
Yeah, I think so. Now, turning our attention to the Flyers rebuild, I think it's really interesting because Danny Briere has been extremely clear about having a plan. He's been a little cagey sometimes about the specifics of that plan, but he knows his path forward and he knows what pieces he's wanted, whether it's free agency, whether it's drafting strategy, to move the chess pieces on the board, so to speak, to set things up. And he has said over and over and over again that he's not going to rush anything. And he has stuck to his word on that front. So he has been continuing to set low to moderate expectations for the Flyers record this upcoming season. And I think it's refreshing in a lot of ways because he is definitely the opposite of Chuck Fletcher in that vein. Chuck Fletcher tried to have it both ways all the time, and that's partially why he failed, I think, in his efforts. But Danny Briere's like, nope, I got a plan and I'm sticking to it. And you got to wait, you got to be patient, but we're doing it in this particular way.
Yeah, I think it's the same way that I'm thinking, but I also think it's the right way of thinking. I don't see a path as to why you would say anything else, to be honest, because
Right.
otherwise you're building unrealistic expectations in my eyes.
But like Chuck Fletcher did, that's my point, is that he would try and
Yeah.
play it both ways, right?
Yeah, he would, because Chuck Fletcher was just always that way. But I think there are less GMs that way now. I think things have changed even since his time.
Yeah, I think that's fair to some degree. Now, I think that in terms of the specific things he's talked about, I wonder if the Trevor Zegras deal changed anything for him in that plan, like his ability to actually get not only getting Trevor Zegras, but in a really effective way that didn't really cost him much, right? It's kind of I would say, a moderate risk that he took in this deal. I wouldn't say low risk, but I would say moderate risk.
Yeah.
Risk here that's not going to derail anything else that's going on per se, or anything else that he has done since then, in my opinion. I wonder if should Trevor Zegras like succeed in a way that maybe he hasn't in the past, if that will change anything.
Well, it'll change the need for a center, but other than that, it won't. But it definitely changed the way they viewed free agency this year, because that was, their big addition.
Yep.
Now, at some point, they're going to have to stop worrying, because I think they worry about this, sticking to the plan of how old somebody is when they pick them up as a free agent. I don't think it's always relevant, even on a rebuilding team. As an example, if Sidney Crosby said tomorrow, I want to be on the Philadelphia Flyers, you
take
get him.
Yeah.
He's going to help everybody develop. He'll still be the best guy on your team. It doesn't matter if he's 35 years old. That's what I mean.
I think Danny Briere knows enough to know that you make those exceptions. I truly believe that.
We'll find out. I mean, he probably does, but we haven't seen it, so I don't know. I have to sometimes see it.
Right. I just think there hasn't, like, the way free agency has been the last couple of years, there just hasn't really been that guy.
Yeah.
That's like much older, that would make that big of an impact that was necessary at that juncture. And that's partially what I love about what Danny Briere has been doing, is that he hasn't been taking those unnecessary risks or signing a guy at the wrong time for the wrong amount of money. No, he's been doing that. And I think it's interesting because there's a quote from him from before the draft, which that timing is important here, because I think it showed what he was thinking and how the draft actually played out here eventually. But he said, we're at a juncture where we might be able to help the team take a step this year, make the team a little bit more competitive than we were last year, and see where it takes us. Then it's going to be up to the players to show us ready or not. Are we there as a team? The exciting part, though, is that we're trying to improve the team, but at the same time, we have lots of early picks. A lot of our picks from the last couple of years are starting to turn pro or come into the system, and some of the young guys are starting to take more of a step forward on the team. He mentions Noah Cates and Tyson Forster and Bobby Brink, and then, the Mitchkov of it all. And he said, again, we feel we're moving in the right direction, but it doesn't happen overnight. And this is, like, in a nutshell, the message he's been repeating again and again and again, but focusing on young player development. And we've seen the other actions he's taken in terms of restructuring the Phantoms coaching staff and making cohesive systems, and having Riley Armstrong and his player development group really take a step forward more into the spotlight in terms of how they're running things there. And to me, all of this together is why, like, on the Monday show, when we talked about the vibes, this is why the vibes are good for me, right? But there's there's specificity and there's deliberateness to this process.
I think it's 95% true. There's still,
which is pretty high.
It's pretty high, but there's still a lot of gambling going on here. As an example,
there always is.
They're gambling that Jet Luchenko's a 1C. So they didn't draft a 1C this year or a potential 1C. They went with Martone because he'll be in the NHL quicker and he's a really good talent. They could have gotten a potential 1C in this draft, but they think Luchenko's a 1C. So they moved off of that because they have Zegras. They're kind of doubling down on who the 1C might be.
Right.
So it did affect things because otherwise there was centers staring them right in the eye as far as guys who could possibly be 1Cs. So like they gambled and that did affect it.
Oh, it absolutely did. So I think that there are little things with risk, and there's always going to be risk when you're building a sports team to try and win a championship. So how far away are they from potentially taking a run at a Stanley Cup? We're going to get into that and the different paths they could take to get there coming up next. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day, you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands, and that's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group of people to come with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple, and prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. They've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming ML game. And of course, I would use it to go see my Phillies anytime they are at home at Citizens Bank Park. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. On our Friday show, we are going to discuss your poll results that we put up on the Monday show about how you're feeling about the Flyers vibes right now. There's a link to it in the show notes. It's on our YouTube channel. Make sure you vote and make sure you put in the comments why you voted the way you did so we can get to that really good discussion on the Friday show. Can't wait. So looking ahead for the Flyers now, I think the big factors here that we're looking at are the younger player development, because again, Danny Briere has put a lot of weight in that, right?
Yep.
This is going to be a build from within kind of team. The giant question mark is goaltending, and is Zavragin the real deal? We don't know that yet, right? And then I think the third factor here, from my perspective, is the Flyers blue line gonna come into place here? Because right now there's not a legit top tier defenseman here, and we don't have anybody in the system that has the potential to be that. So can this team sustain itself with the existing players and or prospects, or are they going to have to sign a defenseman sometime over the next couple of years and put all the money there instead of a center, perhaps? Well, so I think these are my big questions here.
Yeah, they're all big questions. I think, like with the fans wanting to know what's going to happen with the power play, you have to have a power play quarterback. As of today, they still don't. Will Jamie Drysdale be that? I don't know.
Could be.
Is Cam York? Probably not. But they'll probably give him a shot. So, and the only reason I say not is he could do it from the passing end. It's from the passing and shooting end that's the difference. From the passing end, he could do it. So there's that. And they didn't take Z Bouillon, they took Luchenko. Z Bouillon would have been that guy. So that's something where it's like that's their choice. So now, is it something that could still haunt them? Yeah. I mean, they could survive it, but they're going to have somebody who could play the power play point. And I don't know. Will Michkov be that guy? Maybe in a year or two he will. Maybe he'll be so responsible that he can do it. And then that'll solve that problem. It'll patch over that problem. Today, there's no simple solution for that.
Right. And as Danny Briere has said multiple times, this year he's been tempering expectations in terms of the record. We said on the Monday show that they've maybe got 3 to 5 more wins in them this upcoming season than they did the previous year, presuming things go generally well. Nothing's ever going to go perfectly, but as things go generally well.
Tyson Forster is a good example. We don't have an update on him yet. So
Exactly. So I think when we're looking at the path ahead and what could happen here, there's I think 3 or 4 different ways things could go. And so I think year one is going to be, regardless of how it goes, it's going to be that one more year of a fairly static record, but significant player development progress.
I think that's the hope, and it should happen.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Now, the year after that, I think if things are going well, that next year, so not this upcoming season, but the following season, the Flyers should make a playoff run. I think they should be in a position to do that.
Tell me what a playoff run is.
Making the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so, because Zavragin won't be here next year, maybe the year after, unless something extraordinary happens. And even then, he's probably not ready. He probably needs a little bit of time to get ready. So
you think they need to have Zavragin or a Zavragin-like object styled?
Yeah, no matter what.
Before they make the playoffs.
Yeah, because look at the last time they did. What was the thing they had? They had that dialed-in goalie.
Fair.
So I think that with everything else improving, without that, I don't see how it's done. So I think it's still 2 to 3 years.
Before they make the playoffs.
Make the playoffs, because you're hoping he is that guy and they can get him out of his contract.
So that's 2 years. That's what I'm saying.
No, but 2 to 3. I'm saying not this year.
Okay.
And not next year. Maybe the year after. It's a little different.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think if they made a solid playoff run and just missed out on it, I'm satisfied with that.
I still don't even know if they'll be that close, to be fair. And that's even with Martone possibly in the league, and maybe by then Luchenko,
I don't know either. I think
there's still too much growing.
There's a lot of factors. There's other teams involved, but in terms of the vision, to me, that's where it's at. That this season is a little static. The following season, they got to make a playoff run. Hopefully they make it. Maybe they don't. The year after that, got to make the playoffs. Got to.
Yeah, I think that's the goal. And I'm just sort of talking about what I think has to happen to have it happen.
Right. And I think your point about goaltending is fair. I think there are other things that could overcome that. I mean, the Edmonton Oilers managed to do it. Now they do have McDavid and Draisaitl, so I know that's different.
And honestly, no Flyers goalie currently on their roster has even played as good as Skinner at times, when Skinner has been good at times.
Sure.
I mean, but that's the thing. I mean, you have to have at least that. They haven't had even that.
I just think in terms of the plan and to make it a success, that's kind of what we're looking at. And then I would say, in an ideal situation, they're making a legit run in year 4 or 5. Yeah. And then by year 5, they should be consistently good. Right. That's the ideal. Now, right. I think the kind of next scenario here is that all of those things happen, but on that first time they make a playoff run, the following year they take a step backward, because it was a little bit more of a lightning in a bottle situation. Depending on how the factors go, they take a step backward the following year, they figure it out, and then the following year they're back at it. I think that's, the good but not great scenario. So now we're into year 5, 6, right?
Yeah, I think 5 seems about right for it. 4 possibly.
Yeah. Now, the scenario that I don't want to happen more than anything on this earth is the Carolina Hurricanes factor, right? Where this is a very, very, very good hockey team, but they have a ceiling and they have one huge Achilles heel. And it's been goaltending for them. And I think, that's where the Zavragin or other mystery goaltender that we're not considering here comes into play in terms of maybe they pick somebody up as a free agent, but that's an excellent goaltender. But I think in order to do that, Luchenko has to be that 1C, right? Because then they won't need to sign a center.
Right.
And they have to have a blue line that, even though they don't have that elite defenseman, somehow it all works. And the group just works, and they can spend all the money on a goaltender.
Yeah, I mean, that is.
But
one
I
scenario.
do not want the Carolina Hurricanes situation to happen.
But the thing about, there's no perfect way to draft a team and expect that drafted team to be an NHL winner. I mean, Edmonton will tell you that. A lot of teams will tell you that. The Sabres, a lot of teams. So there's a lot of those other things that are at play. I think with Carolina, it's a multi-layered thing. It's easy to look at the goaltending first, but then you kind of look at it and say, all right, have their best stars been really good? Yeah. Have their secondary guys been really good? At times. So you could also put secondary scoring on that list.
Sure. But the other factor with Carolina in particular is that the way that Brind'Amour runs their team is that they kind of are built to run out of gas just when they need to ride it out at the end of the playoffs. They play too hard. They play playoff style hockey too much in the regular season, and then they're just done too early. I think that's a part of it as well.
I mean, that may be, but even players like coaches like Torts have won a cup, so you could do it. I don't know if that's really the reason. I still think it's more personnel than Brind'Amour, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both. I just honestly think it's both. But I also think that, that is definitely the path we do not want to take. Yeah. Now, I just don't see a scenario where this Flyers team doesn't get to be consistently good based on what Danny Briere's done. I do think that based on the risks and the things we've talked about in terms of choices that they've made, it is possible that this team doesn't take that Stanley Cup run particularly. But I would like to think that Danny Briere is just going to layer on other moves into what he has already done to make it possible to do that. But unless there's like major injury to a top prospect, a major failure to develop all of the prospects, because we have so many of them that the odds are that enough of them are going to hit.
Yeah, I think that's
where we're at, right?
Yes. But then there's still that, and this happens with a lot of other teams because they all had these same thoughts and hopes. If they're still at the end of the day in 3 years still looking for a 1C, 1D and top goalie, that's how that doesn't happen. And that is still possible. Like, these are hardest positions to fill in hockey.
Right. I think it kind of aligns with the old thing that I've always heard, that you can never have like your love life, your living situation, and your job all going well at any given time. You can never have a 1C, a top defenseman, and a goalie all good at the same time. But the best teams learn how to overcome that. And Danny Briere has put the pieces into place, I think, to be able to overcome that when the time comes. But to be determined. There's also the contracts to consider. At the end of 26-27, we've got Zegras and Drysdale. End of 27-28, we've got the Michkov contract, and that's going to play a huge part as well. Yes. I think the Michkov contract timing with a goalie contract timing, that's where the rubber's going to meet the road from a financial standpoint, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's probably the next time it will. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. We are going to get to your mailbag questions and comments related to the Flyers vibes coming up next. All right. Like I said, we talked about the Flyers vibes being good on the Monday show. I think, we generally like what Danny Briere is doing. We've just talked about some of the risk factors there and how it could potentially go south, but that it shouldn't go south based on the groundwork that Danny Briere has laid. So some of your comments related to that Monday discussion. Flyers Purgatory said, we're 3 years into the Briere era, and we have zero potential solutions to the two cornerstone positions, 1C, 1D. Danny has a calendar year from now to solve one of them. I have no interest on the Iser plan or Hextall plan or building a Carolina type team with obvious ceilings, which is literally what we just talked about, right?
No, like I agree with him. He's not wrong.
Right. I think that the pieces are there so that he can solve those problems. And there are, a couple of guys that could eventually be 1Cs that are on the team or, prospects on the team now. We just don't know the answer to that. I think the blue line one, though, is a bigger question.
Yeah, that's a bigger question.
For sure. At El Camo 11 said, I'm a little skeptical about the drafting they've done other than Mitchkoff and Martone. How will they get a 1C and 1D if they don't draft any? I hope Luchenko and Nesbitt will prove the Flyers right and the wingers will be so good that we won't need any of the top 10 centers to win the cup. But a top 5 pick in 2026 would have me truly excited and completely on board.
Yeah, I mean, we did go through, I did talk about all the gambling that they did for the potential 1C. I don't disagree about the 2026 sentiment because McKenna is better than anybody I've seen in the last 4 or 5 years. So I think that that's a real thought. And yeah, I think it's one of these things where, like, I understand both sides of it. And I think, and look, we've talked about the drafting. Like, I think they had a good draft. Did they go about it exactly the way I would have? No. And so, like, that's, like, we're talking about goaltending, and I still would have drafted Ravensburg, and I would have done anything I could, even whatever I needed to do it. And they didn't do it. So if he turns into a 1C, or if, years from now, Fowler is a 1C, a 1G rather, first number one goalie, or Fowler is a number one goalie with the Canadians, then you're going to look at that and say, okay, those are guys the Flyers could have had legitimately, not looking back and saying, why didn't the Flyers draft Cale Makar? They weren't going to draft Cale Makar, right? They weren't in that headspace. Right. But these guys, they could have drafted potential, number one goalies in the league. So that's things that you look at and you say, okay, this is why we get mailbag questions like this, because those questions still exist.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that if they can fill, like, again, that 1C, the top defenseman, goaltender, if they can fill 2 of those 3 from within, I think they're in good shape.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at. On Monday's show, we also talked about John Snowden and his introductory press conference and, like, the synergy between the teams. And Russ, you had mentioned that it was kind of a shame that Ole Lixell wasn't going to be around because he was exactly the kind of player that would fit within John Snowden's system. And Guido Valente commented, Ole Lixell is an AHL player. Yeah, that's what we're saying.
Talking about in the AHL. Solid AHL player, a top AHL player. Absolutely. We agree on that. Thank you.
Yeah. Andrew commented, what's been the biggest surprise of the offseason so far? York's contract, drafting Martone, drafting Nesbitt, Dvorak's signing value, anything else?
Drafting Nesbitt. I think that was one where nobody had that going. Nobody at the draft, nobody I spoke to. Now, again, on inner circles, there's always this, well, this team was going to take him or whatever. And I always tell you that there's a certain point, and I've spoken to Shane Malloy about this. He's looked at it trading up. There's a value loss almost every time when you do it in an NHL draft. And so it's like, yeah, I couldn't find anybody that thought that was the way the Flyers were going to go. So that was the most surprising.
Yeah, I would put that in a tie with the Zegras deal, to be honest.
Sure.
Because I just felt like that was hanging out there for so long, and there were other teams named as well as potential destinations for Zegras, that, like, the fact that it happened at all, that he got traded, was like almost a surprise. Just because it'd been,
the timing of it was definitely a surprise.
Yeah.
But I still, maybe because I'm a draft guy, but at the draft, everybody was kind of like, surprised at the Nesbitt pick too that I saw.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a tie for me between the
and
Nesbitt pick and the Zegras deal, just because I never really expected it to happen because it's
Right.
been talked about for so long, and that it happened with the Flyers.
Yeah.
I think was a little bit of a surprise to me as well. So those two moves for sure. Z Tabro commented, not that I'm expecting him to be the same player, but does Nesbitt compare at all to Tage Thompson? Big center taken in the middle of the first round. Any comparables?
Both are big and both can play a power forward game, but Thompson came out of UConn. He was almost a point a game when he got drafted. His dad's a coach. He has an elite shot. Those are things that are different from Nesbitt. Nesbitt goes about his game differently. He's better defensively. Also, Thompson didn't click as a winger like he was being played. Then Don Granato played him at center, and boom, he gets the 38 goals. So that's a big difference. And also, that put Thompson ahead of Nesbitt in his development cycle in his draft year because he had already played in college. Again, this notion that college hockey just got good and is all of a sudden a good place to develop. It's always been that. And I've been pumping it for 20 years. But now I think, everybody's seeing it. And especially now that there's money there, it really helps the situation along. So that doesn't take away from Nesbitt. It's just the situations are different.
Right. I agree with you there. Last question or comment here is Paul is asking, speaking of carrying a third goalie and that being Kolosov, how does his development as the third goalie progress along better than perhaps being on the Phantoms and seeing a greater workload? And the answer is it doesn't.
Yeah, but Paul knew that. He asked this question knowing the answer. And that's the answer. Like, we knew it last year. Like, you can't play like 7 NHL games and develop like playing 30 or 35 AHL games. It just can't do it. But Kolosov doesn't care. Like, this guy just wants to get paid. Like, he does. He wants to get his NHL salary. That is obvious.
Yeah, I think so. Just the way he had approached.
He loves the game. He wants to be a good goalie, but he also wants to get paid and be in the NHL and not have to grind it out in the AHL. Like, that just seems the way it is.
Another one of those problems for the Flyers to deal with this year that hopefully gets cleared off the decks the following year when everything in goaltending land is great.
It all
for
changes.
The Flyers.
Yep.
That will do it for today's show. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you've got a mailbag question, let us know via any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no offseason. We bring you the daily leagues-wide stories that matter most with local coverage you love from Locked On. I'm on the Friday show. You can find it on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.